And welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. Glad you're with us. We're here every week dealing with topical issues and meeting interesting people, and that's the case once again.
It is. We're going to be talking about a rather somber subject, human trafficking. Oklahoma is affected by it. Have people being shipped into Oklahoma beyond their will and apparently sometimes taken out of Oklahoma. We've got two gentlemen joining us today. They're going to tell us about what's going on to try to stop that activity.
Should be an interesting show. It's coming up next on The Verdict.
In driving rain, blistering heat, and bitter cold, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, Chesapeake drills non-stop for natural gas on American soil. Chesapeake drills more new gas wells than anyone else, and from those wells collects the most drilling information and acquires more 3D seismic images, leveraging every efficiency to improve the odds of finding more natural gas every day with every well we drill. The better job we do of discovering bigger reserves of clean-burning American natural gas, the greater the prosperity of our nearby communities, our state, and our nation. And as long as there are more gas reserves to be found here in the U.S., we will never rest. Chesapeake. Natural gas wins the day.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
You got it before it took you. And welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Today we're really pleased to have two guests to talk about this very difficult subject. To my right is Mark Yancey. Mark is a United States Attorney, Assistant United States Attorney for the Western District of Oklahoma. He began his law enforcement career with the FBI. He was an FBI agent for 5 years and then became an Assistant United States Attorney, has been an Assistant United States Attorney since 1991. He is chief of the Major Crimes Section here in Oklahoma City and has been since 2007. Mark, welcome.
Good to be here. Thank
Glad
you.
to have you. To my left is Dick Klinge. Dick is the Associate Director of Catholic Charities, the Oklahoma City Archdiocese. Dick is also a lawyer, got his law degree from Washburn University in Kansas. He has worked in the business sector. He has been in private practice and is now working with the Archdiocese in Catholic Charities with a heavy emphasis on anti-human trafficking. Dick, glad to have you.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
I'd like to hear from each of you exactly what your role is in this issue. Mark, why don't you go first?
Well, with the Department of Justice, about 4 or 5 years ago, the department formed a human trafficking prosecution unit to address this problem around the country. There are 8 or 10 prosecutors that go around the country and investigate and prosecute human trafficking cases. In addition to that, they have also sponsored about 40 task forces around the country. These are task forces that are comprised of federal, state, and local officers and non-governmental organizations such as Richard's Catholic Charities.
Well, let me ask, before we get to Dick here, let me ask you about trafficking. Are we talking about trafficking people into Oklahoma or out of Oklahoma, or both?
Generally into Oklahoma, and because of our proximity to the border here, the Mexican border, it's a gateway from Central America all the way through Texas and into Oklahoma via I-35. So yes, trafficking people into Oklahoma.
Dick, your involvement in this?
Well, we've got, at Catholic Charities, we have a large immigration law department. We've also for many years done refugee and asylum work. And the FBI contacted us a couple, maybe 6-8 months ago, I don't remember exactly when. They wanted to help with the U and T visas, which are helpful things to the victims of this crime that the government prosecutes. And so what we do is our lawyers assist the victims in obtaining relief and protection under federal statutes under the immigration laws of the United States.
Now, you talk about these people being victims. Are these people who have been forced to come to Oklahoma?
Well, in general, yes. It's either could be for sex, for labor, either one. Some cases of debt, they'll put them under slavery for debt, and it's one of those three of the general ones we see.
How do they become known to you and known as people that need help?
Well, that's one of the problems we have is public awareness and law enforcement awareness. This is a fairly new crime here to Oklahoma. We have had some successful prosecutions, but generally we become aware through law enforcement or through the public's efforts.
Well, in other words, they get arrested or somehow detained, and
some get arrested, some get detained by immigration authorities, working with organizations like Catholic Charities. Sometimes it's the non-governmental organizations which bring these things to law enforcement's attention because they're the first ones to encounter these people.
Who's doing this, and what level of organized crime is involved in this?
You know, in some of the larger cities in the United States, like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, there is a heavily organized crime influence. In Oklahoma, there is some organized crime influence, although we see less of that here. It's more smaller groups that are involved, really for profit-making purposes.
Like gangs or just small groups?
Not necessarily gangs, but just small groups of criminals who are interested in profiting from this venture.
And what does Catholic Charities do in this regard to try to assist?
The government, back in 2000, they passed some laws that give what are called U and T visas for victims of crime. The purpose of the law was to help witnesses come forward, because we're talking here about mostly, for the most part, undocumented people. So they're very hesitant to come forward to the police or to law enforcement agencies. And so what we do is we provide the representation of these people that believe they have been victims of crime, and we then process and represent them and process their application through the governmental process in Vermont.
Now, do you do that?
We have 4 lawyers on full staff. We have 4 lawyers who do that full time. I do more of the advocacy side. Yeah, we have 4 full-time lawyers at Catholic Charities that do nothing but immigration law.
And that's the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City?
Yes, it's Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City. Basically, we represent people in the western half of the state, essentially, is what the Archdiocese is.
Well, Mark, is your work beyond what immigration would normally be handling?
It is. Immigration, typically what we see from a prosecutor standpoint is we are actually charging illegal aliens. We refer to them as criminal aliens. We focus on those aliens who are here and who have committed crimes before in the United States and have been deported. That's typically what we deal with on a criminal level. Trafficking is a little different, where you have aliens, as Dick mentioned, who are here, maybe undocumented, they're here illegally, but they're not here committing crimes. They're the victims of crimes through, again, forced labor, sex trafficking, things like that. So it is very different.
Most of these victims, if they are in Oklahoma City, are they on their way to somewhere else, or is this a final destination?
Many of them are on to other areas around the country. Again, we're the crossroads here in Oklahoma City. We have I-40, I-44, and I-35, sort of the crossroads of America. So people here that are found here are often being trafficked to other major cities. But we do see some people here, this is their final destination.
Now, what agencies of the federal government are involved in this effort besides the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI?
Dick mentioned the FBI about 6 months ago approaching us about forming a human trafficking working group. And we decided that was the best way to combat, combine efforts and combine resources and combat the problem here in Oklahoma. So we have formed an Oklahoma Human Trafficking Working Group, It is the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the District Attorney's Office is involved, Oklahoma City Police Department, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We've even utilized the State Department out of Dallas to assist us because they work visa fraud investigations. And of course, the non-governmental organizations like Catholic Charities.
Are these cases tried in Oklahoma City, or are they generally tried somewhere else?
They're tried here. If they're in the Western District, of course, they'd be tried here in Oklahoma City. Tulsa had a case several years ago. That's the Northern District, and they had a case that was tried up there.
Are we typically involving in these cases 2 people, 5 people, or 50 people?
You know, it depends. The case in Tulsa I'm referring to, I think there was as many as 40 victims in that case. The Oklahoma City cases have been a little bit smaller. We had a sex trafficking case a few years ago you may be familiar with. It garnered national attention, a child sex trafficking case.
And how do you work with Catholic Charities? Would you call them, or would you alert them, or do they alert you? How does that conversation go?
Well, it could go both ways. A lot of times we will get a referral or be given a heads up that there's a case, and that they'll be sending people our way, a victim that we need to take a look at and assist in seeing if they're eligible for the U or T visa protections. So, and sometimes, however, one of the reasons that we have this working group is that the lawyers at Catholic Charities will often be interviewing someone, and it takes us some skills to learn what questions to ask to see if, because these victims are reluctant to come forward because they've been under such control of a third person. And so if we find a case, then we'll work with the appropriate people in the working group, whether it's the District Attorney's Office or Mark's office or the FBI.
Dick Klinge, Mark Yancey, we're discussing human trafficking on The Verdict. We'll be right back with more.
To be Chickasaw, you have strength, you have faith, and your family comes first.
I was diagnosed with FSGS, which is a progressive kidney disease that leads to kidney failure.
I believe that being Chickasaw makes me strong. It made me a strong mother for Melissa.
She told me that day, don't worry, I'll be there for you. I've got 2 kidneys, you can have 1.
They took me in first, and we just hugged each other, and I said, Melissa, it's almost time, it's gonna be all right.
My mom has given me life twice, and how do you ever thank someone for giving you a second chance? Through those challenging times, my family and I knew that we were gonna get through it, that we are a Chickasaw family, and that whatever obstacle may arise, together we will conquer it.
Home values are down in some states, but not in Oklahoma. Oklahoma's home values have increased 4.2% during the past 12 months. Unlike some states where home values have decreased as much as 20%. Good thing you're in Oklahoma. There may be real estate problems in some states, but there has never been a better time than now to buy or sell a home in Oklahoma. One of the most affordable states in the country, Oklahomans are buying and selling homes every day, and an Oklahoma Realtor can show you how. Good thing you're in Oklahoma.
Okiwani is an Indian name for a place where children play. When we obtained the camp, we found a lot of oil debris left in the woods. We saw a commercial about how the oil and natural gas industry cleans up old oil well sites. We called the OERB, and they agreed to remove tons of concrete and steel. It didn't cost us a thing. Thousands of children have left their footprints on this land. Thanks to the oil and gas industry, they will for a long time to come.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We're discussing human trafficking with our guests Mark Yancey and Dick Klinge. Dick, are there any individual cases that you could speak of that might bring this home to our viewers?
Yeah, one of the cases, probably the more recent vintage that I think these are out of Mark's office, is we dealt with the actual defendant, I think, was out of either a Central or South American country, but he was bringing in women and then getting them here and forcing them into sex and or money bondage. And that we said, I think we have 2 or 3 of those cases in our office now. So, you know, where they're passports, their documents are all taken from whatever they had. They're left here without anything, and they're literally kept under, it's the new form of slavery, and they're kept in a slave setting condition. It was, you know, as I got into this, it was hard for me to understand it and believe it was happening here. We've had several of those cases. We've had
here in Oklahoma City?
Here in Oklahoma, yes. These are all cases that we work on would have arisen in the state of Oklahoma, primarily in the Western District, the western half of the state where we are. And we have one of the cases I think Mark was referring to is it's called the pickle case. It was, now this goes back a few years, but there were several workers brought in from I believe it was a Southeast Asian country, if I remember correctly, and they were brought over here and then kept in slave work conditions. They were defrauded, brought over here. My recollection is there were 30 or 40. We handled several of those cases in our office, and that was before I was with Catholic Charities, but our lawyers who have been there, we handled some of those cases also. And that's the type of case we're seeing now, and we also are seeing crimes of violence against victims that may not rise to the trafficking level, but that they also investigate. And there's also, that's one of the visa protections they have too. What we're finding and what we're seeing more and more of is undocumented people are being taken advantage of, whether it's true trafficking or just being taken advantage of criminally, and that's where the two visas come into play.
You mean they might be promised a job or promised a better living situation, then they get over here and then they're basically kept against their will?
Absolutely. In fact, getting ready for this today, there was just this week in Kansas City, I saw there was a major filing by the U.S. Attorney up there. Hundreds of people have been brought over. They've filed a major case in Kansas City, bringing people over in the hotel industry and the restaurant industry. That's not a Western District case, I don't think, but that it is happening all the time and growing. I think it's the second fastest growing crime in the world.
Mark, are there any individual cases you think might be interesting to our viewers?
There are. We've had several over the years here in Oklahoma City. The Stormy Nights investigation was a child sex trafficking investigation where you had pimps essentially prostituting underage juveniles from around the country right here in Oklahoma City at our truck stops and at our hotels. That was a case that garnered national attention, and some of the victims were as young as 12 years old. We had another case, what we like to refer to as a restaurant case here in Oklahoma City, and that is where you have undocumented workers who are put to work in a restaurant. They're working off the books, so to speak, so they're not being paid minimum wage, they're being paid less than minimum wage, and working long hours and being exploited that way.
How do you become aware of those?
Public sometimes, sometimes law enforcement, sometimes it's not after until there's an arrest of some of the undocumented workers who then provide us information. Although, as Dick stated, sometimes they're very reluctant to do that because they're here illegally. They often don't speak the English language. That's why they're very susceptible of being coerced or exploited in the first place.
Are there any examples of some sort of illegal adoption service that might be taking place and somehow those children winding up in Oklahoma?
You know, I've not heard of that here, but I know that's taken place around the country in some places around the United States.
I've not heard of it at Catholic Charities. I'm not aware of any such case.
How do you handle a language problem if you're a client or the victim doesn't speak the language? I guess that's often the case.
Yeah. At Catholic Charities, of course, a lot of the victims are Hispanic, and we have a large bilingual staff. Half our lawyers and all of our clerical staff or support staff is bilingual. But we use interpreters all the time. We have that refugee and asylee program. We bring in people from all over the world, so we've got a bank of interpreters that we can call on when we need to help. It's something we run into every day.
How many different countries approximately have had people brought here that you've worked with?
On the trafficking cases, I'd say it's primarily the ones we're working on now are coming out of Central South America. That would be the current cases we're seeing in the trafficking area. Now we see refugees from all over the world.
Dick, do you ever have a situation where once the legal ramifications are resolved, these people don't want to go back home?
Well, in fact, what the government does when we talk about the UNT visas, they actually have a path to citizenship. So if they cooperate with the police, the law enforcement, whatever the agency is, they can then become eligible over a period of time to have a path to legal permanent residence, and ultimately to citizenship.
You mean, as part of their willingness to give testimony, it could aid in their ability to become a U.S. citizen?
Absolutely, and when government passed the Victims Protection Act in 2000, the U.S. Congress, that's exactly was the premise for the whole act. That was because they realized people like Mark need those witnesses to come forward to help him prosecute the bad guys that are causing the trafficking.
I see, and they might not be protected if they were sent back to their native country. They might be in more harm
And we have cases, I know of one case, exactly what happened in Oklahoma City case. Within 24 hours of an arrest, people in the victim's home country were threatened. And I think Mark could probably tell more about that, but yes, absolutely, that's the case. And the law also allows you to bring what we call derivatives in the legal practice, but it's your children, possibly your parents. It depends on the age, but you can bring family members in too, because they're also subject to threat in some of these countries.
Mark, what do you need from the general public? Do you need heightened awareness? Do you need more people willing to help from a philanthropy standpoint? What would help?
All of the above. We need primarily we need to educate the public, law enforcement, and prosecutors. Human trafficking is very easily masked. It may appear to be something other than it is. And I always use the example that in a situation where the local police may arrest or take down a brothel, for example, the people running the brothel are arrested and charged with pandering. The prostitutes are arrested and charged with prostitution charges. And it looks like an open and shut case. But we need that law enforcement awareness and public awareness that we go the extra step to try to determine whether the people engaging in the prostitution were actually there of their own free will, or were they being exploited. That's especially true in cases that involve underage prostitutes and where the prostitutes don't speak the English language.
Now, you all file charges. What are judges' reactions to these things? Are these people giving harsh penalties, or what's your interpretation of how these cases end up?
I think if you can demonstrate that this was a trafficking organization and something more than just a simple, prostitution crime, at least in the sex trafficking area, yes, I think they are giving fairly harsh sentences.
Well, let me ask about what happens to the victim after the crime the victim comes forward or somehow is made known, cooperates, trial is held, conviction is gotten on the bad people, and now you've got an underage former prostitute, may not speak the English language without any parental support or anything, here in Oklahoma. What happens to that person?
You've just identified one of the biggest problems. I think the law enforcement side is getting very sophisticated with Mark's work and the FBI and their coordination with state agencies, but what we've got to build in Oklahoma is a system of NGOs that are willing to provide services. One of the biggest problems we see is getting work permits, because these people, once they're taken out of the trafficking situation, they have no income, they have no support. So one of the problems, it's a part legislative issue we've got to work on, but we need to get work permits for these people. They've got to be able to go to work. Then we've got to get them long-term counseling. Many of these victims have very severe long-term traumatic counseling needs because of the nature of the crime, and we're working on that, sir.
We're going to have to make that the final word on this show. Dick, thank you for coming in. Mark, appreciate your work with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Kent and I'll have a final word after this.
Thanks.
It's time to meet the new people in power.
The people responsible for our energy future.
It's you.
It's me. All of us together.
From now on, we're the people in power.
OG&E will supply the power.
It's how we apply the power that counts.
We've got to use electricity smarter,
wiser,
cleaner,
better.
So we've got to be informed,
equipped, prepared,
committed.
From now on.
Look, nobody wants to waste energy.
Nobody wants to build new power plants.
Nobody wants to pay more for electricity.
But nobody wants to give up their way of life.
We don't have to.
If we just use positive energy together.
I'll take advantage of off-peak hours.
That means cutting energy use from 1 to 7 every day.
Every day.
I'm going to sign up for more and more wind power.
We'll take advantage of the high-tech tools coming soon from OG&E.
OG&E can't do it alone.
It's you and OG&E working together.
Find dozens of ways you can help at OGE.com.
A positive energy future is in our power. Together.
With all your power, what would you do?
And Blankenship has stopped at the line of scrimmage. No gain on the play. Leaving it 4th and 7 on the Tiger 46-yard line. 38 seconds on the clock. The Tigers have no choice but to go for it. Wiggins had to do the kicking. Here's the snap. And the kick is away.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. a legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. That was an eye-opening show. I had no idea that to the extent that human trafficking was taking place right here in Oklahoma City.
Well, nor did I, of course, when they explained why it is with the highway structure as it is. It's not surprising, I suppose, that it happens. But I likewise had no idea that it was going on. Came across this topic by virtue of a program done at the University of Oklahoma with Dick and Mark and others talking about it. They've really, thank goodness, gotten a good handle on it.
And if you have an idea for a show, you can tell us on our website, theverdict.tv. Kent and I'll see you next week with another show on The Verdict.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.